I'm Max Sterling. Welcome to LarpMix. So, you play a game and you've been playing it for a long time, and maybe you want to do something new. You want to do something interesting. Maybe it's something that the people who run the game haven't thought of or they're not interested in doing, so you decide to start a secret society. Now, if you've been to college, if you live in a city or a small town, there are plenty of secret societies around. Whether you know about them or found out about them later in life, or you may never find out about them, they do exist and they're out there in the real world, and they should be in your LARP as well. Now, I decided to start my own sort of little secret society at my LARP, probably maybe 3 years ago, give or take. And what I decided to do, because I play an assassin and a rogue at my primary game I play at, I decided to just make an assassin's guild. Now, an assassin's guild is more or less a guild than is a secret society. However, I mean, obviously, you want the members to be secret, and, it needs to be very cloak and dagger, of course. Now, this is a medieval fantasy game that I play, so it's very sort of Dungeons and Dragons style rogues and assassin type work. So, what I did was something that most people, are not interested in doing at their game, and I made myself the face for the organization. So everybody knows I'm assassin, everybody knows that I'm a rogue, and I dress in all black. It's very cliche, but to come to me if you're looking to hire this organization. Now, that does paint a huge target on me. That leaves me open to, being questioned by authorities, being tried perhaps even for crimes. However, I find myself being a strong enough and influential enough character that if those things happen to me, I can control the outcome, whether it be, just negotiating or, at the end of a sword. Either way, I can handle myself, is basically what I'm saying. So your character in your game, if you're powerful enough that you believe you can handle yourself or you have the right backing, then it's pretty easy actually to go out and do this. Now, if you don't, and you feel as though if you tried to do something like this, you might just, get taken out by other players or plot, then you will need to be even more secretive than I was. But I'm going to sort of let you know what I did, and hopefully you can take some tips and pointers from it and create your own secret society game. It doesn't have to be anything nefarious. I mean, you could be a secret society of heroes, of great heroes that do great good, but you view everyone else as sort of being evil, so you want to make sure that you're a tight-knit group. I mean, you could be a group that's bent on vengeance for one particular thing, and it could just be 4 or 5 like-minded people that don't normally run together, but for the purposes of this secret society or group, you do run together. And the group I put together was basically that. Now, what I did was I approached it just as if you were going to make, I don't know, some sort of group at your office or, in your community. I decided that I needed a name, I needed some bylaws, and I needed to know what we were about, what our mission statement is, what our core values are, what our goals are, and if there were going to be any rules. Now, you think Assassin Guild, may not have very many rules, but the truth of the matter is that there need to be rules in order to run any sort of organization. So I sat down, I came up with some bylaws, I made a paper full of them, and basically, it said something to the effect of, contracts will come through me. I will make them known to everyone, and whoever wishes to carry out the contracts, you may do so on your own, or if you want to bring other people in to assist you, you can. You decide how the split occurs after the guild takes its cut, and our cut was going to be 10%. That 10% would go to sort of just further the guild, buy supplies, allow a discount on supplies purchased through me, through the guild, acting as basically a middleman, and essentially just keeping things flowing smoothly. And I figured 10% was just a nice round number. It could have been more or less, but I figured 10% based on this particular game's economy. Now, as far as the contracts, they would come to me either by courier, or sometimes people would come directly to me, or they would send, a proxy to speak to me, or whatever they felt comfortable with doing. But the point of the matter is here's the person, and here's what they want done. And it was pretty much that simple. We have a in-game paper. I tried to run an ad in, and Basically it was mostly word of mouth though. However, as far as the actual rules, it was simply that anyone can contract anybody at any time. And if we get a contract for a guild member, I accept the contract, but basically we don't fulfill it. So essentially, you are granted some protection by being in the guild, and I have to accept all contracts because I want to keep the guild completely anonymous. And as far as other rules, I mean, pretty much that was it. I mean, you could basically do whatever you wanted to, but we would have meetings every so often, and of course I needed to assign officers and so on and so forth. So what I had was I had a few cronies, you could call them, that were basically just people that I could hand a message to and they would deliver it for me, or they would maybe deliver me a message, and they were basically on the payroll. That 10% helped to cover those costs. And these are people that they kind of wanted to be associated with the guild, or maybe they felt like if they helped us they would be protected. Well, I can tell you they weren't. The only way to be protected was to be in the guild, so even my cronies weren't safe, but they may have thought they were. But what would happen is, I'd have these cronies and they were assigned, a title, and we called them something like fate callers, I believe. In the game I play, there's not really death. They refer to it as fate, so everything was fate-based as far as my guild was concerned, instead of it being like a death-based guild. And, I had initiates, acolytes, thralls, disciples, adepts, and then there were lots of titles you can get. All of the titles were based on how many people you killed or how many contracts you fulfilled. And every one or two you would move up basically a place, and then when we have meetings, your new title would be granted to you. Now, as far as the meetings, I tried not to have them very often, and the main meeting was the very first one where we had pretty much everyone that was interested come and join. Now, what I did was I had a secret invitation. It was just, a piece of paper rolled up, piece of string around it. I had these delivered by one of my cronies I already had in place. And basically it said on it, you're invited to attend the inaugural Assassin's Guild meeting tonight. Through expressed interest in furthering your skills in the dark arts, you have cast gaze upon the void, and it has looked back upon you. Meet at this location, at game start or whatever. Your first task is to slip away from your group, don a black vestment, and arrive at the destination unseen. And, sure enough, I'm up there floating around, all black mask over my face, so no one can tell who anyone is. Although they knew who I was, because obviously I'm running it. And really everyone else, full black cloaks, dark cloaks, face mask and stuff. If I wouldn't have known who was there, I wouldn't have known who was there. I was very impressed by the individuals that showed up, and actually there's quite a few, more than I thought there would be. So we had our little secret meeting, and I sort of went over a little personalized speech with each of them that didn't discuss anything specifically to their character that anyone would know, but was sort of specific to them, and then had them essentially agree to join the guild. And it is a until death do you part type of deal. Once you're in, there is no getting out. And they all agreed to it, so it worked out well. Now, whenever I was coming up with my bylaws, so on and so forth, I did a lot of research into, secret societies, guilds, and things like that. And I knew that we were going to need a way to identify ourselves in the event that there was, a misunderstanding or some sort of emergency. Because essentially, the way I developed and designed this guild is that nobody knew anyone else in the guild. Only I knew who was in it. Every single member had no clue who else was in the guild except for me. Now, they could go to these meetings and they could see that there's 5 or 6 people standing there, but unless they could take a really good guess or they metagamed it, then they would have no idea who it was. And that was, by design, because I feel that metagaming can really ruin something, just destroy something cool like this, because people will talk about it out of game and stuff. And as much fun as it is to talk about it out of game, you really need to remember the first rule of Fight Club and just not talk about it. So nobody knew anyone by design. Secret handshake was very simple. I don't want to spill too much on the guild because it may still be active at my primary game, but we had a secret handshake, which was a very simple handshake that could be done, and everything was basically based around this Eye of Fate concept. So I have a little design that's an eye with some like triangles coming off of it and stuff, and the handshake was very simple. It's just when you shake hands, you would basically wrap your fingers around like this, and that way someone would know that you were in the guild, like I said, in the event of some sort of emergency. We also had a passphrase or some sort of phrase that we could say to each other every single game. That way, if something came up, we could drop this sort of phrase and someone would know, oh, they're in the guild, so they know not to kill them or to just let them do their thing or not intervene. Because if you're helping your group and then all of a sudden someone jumps out and gets someone, your initial reaction is obviously going to be to stop them. However, you're in a secret group, a secret society that operates behind the veil of reality. So even though you have a group that you walk around with, you are devoted to this other shadow group back here. So if someone jumps out from behind a tree and kills your best friend, you're going to just need to let that happen, because if you don't, then the entire guild is going to come for you. And these are the type of things that you need to swear into when you join groups like this. I mean, if it's going to be a devious group, sort of like this is, then it's going to make you have questionable decisions, and you need to be the right type of character to play that. And if it's not something you want to do, then don't do it. You're certainly not pressed into anything, and you're well advised ahead of time. But these are the type of things that would happen. And some of the phrases we had, they were all sort of fate based, and I looked up sort of maybe some famous quotes and rearranged some words. Some of them were there's no armor against fate. T2, of course, no fate but what we make. Man may foresee his fate but not prevent. Things like that. So it's pretty interesting. And as far as the guild, there were a lot of contracts. There were a lot of assassinations that were done. People went up, they gained title, gained influence within the organization, and then all of a sudden, there was a pretty big change in the way the game was played. I knew from the start that I had informants in the group, and the informants that were placed in the group were, I don't know that it was entirely an in-game sort of informant scenario. So I had to really sort of watch myself, and if you develop a group like this, you may have to watch yourself at your game as well. I would like to say that it's purely an in-character, in-game standpoint, but a lot of times people want to make sure that you're not interfering with the fun of others, and I get that, I totally do. But it got to the point where I felt it was getting too difficult to run this type of group, and it may have been causing others to not enjoy the game so much. So I really throttled down immensely on the sort of activities that we were doing. And for the last year, I would say really the group has been largely inactive. I have some members that are, coming to me saying, well, why aren't we doing anything? Why haven't we met? And, I sort of try to explain it to them in an in-game way, but I think for the most part, unfortunately, this secret society is going to be done. Now, that being said, I am itching to create another one. But the next one I make, I don't think is going to be anything sort of as cruel as an Assassin's Guild. Perhaps something like a Thieves' Underground or a Rogue's Den or something along those lines. Or maybe something completely different, just an actual secret society. Myself and I know a few others have a few sort of causes that we follow in our game. There's a few deep-seated sort of antagonist that I believe we could form a group against. And some of these antagonists are actually viewed as protagonists in some people's eyes. So that's a perfect scenario in which to create a group like this. Now, I've been talking a lot, telling you sort of what I did, and, you know, hopefully it's piquing your interest. Now, if groups like this already exist in your game, you may not even know. But if you've heard something whispered in shadow, I would suggest trying to track down some leads, because running a group like this, I'll tell you what, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and it's a lot of thought process if you want to do it properly and cover all of your bases. If you want to join a group, well, that's easy and it's a lot of fun. So I would definitely suggest joining one. But if something like this doesn't exist, and I don't care if your game is modern, post-apocalyptic, medieval fantasy, sci-fi, you can always have these sort of clandestine operations and groups and shadow governments and shadow, you know, groups and things operating behind the scenes. And even if it's just you and 2 or 3 other people, it can grow over time. By the time I sort of phased this out, I must have had probably a dozen people in the guild, and then another 2 or 3 associated with it. Now, when you're talking about a game with, say, maybe a 50 to 60 player base, to have 15 people involved, or basically a quarter of the players involved in a guild like this, that's a pretty powerful guild. And I think that started to put the shakes to some of the people that run the game. And that's another reason why I throttled it down, because, you know, I don't mind playing a bad guy in the game, but I don't want to be viewed as a bad guy outside of the game. And that's something you'll have to consider if you decide to run, you know, a thief or an assassins or a rogues guild. But I hope this has given you something to think about. I hope you didn't get too bored by listening to me talk and sort of tell you about what I did. But if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to answer them for you. If you have some cool ideas you want to kick around, you know, I'd love to hear about them. You know, if you play something that's not medieval fantasy, like you want to do something post-apocalyptic and maybe have some sort of secret, you know, society that, you know, does something with water or collects old books, or maybe you are a religious group or something like that. I don't know. I think that would be really interesting to hear about. But some main points to consider when you're doing this is, like I said, just have something that people want to join. Okay, so make it cool. Have titles that you can assign to people, because people love titles. You know, maybe have a secret handshake. Have a secret handshake. Some sort of pin or badge that's sort of nondescript, but, you know, can identify people if you have a group that you want to be able to identify. And you know, secret phrases, all that cool stuff. Maybe have a hideout that people can go to, and just, you know, all the little fun stuff that makes being a member of a secret society worthwhile. And of course, if your game is run very well, there may not be a need to try to avoid the outside of game or the metagaming that I talk about. But if you have a game where you know people cannot keep quiet, then you may need to run your operation the way I did, where basically nobody knows who's in the game. So you can't have a player say, I'm interested, come to the first meeting, write down everyone's name, and then go blab to the people who run the game, or blab to the people in the game who maybe paid them to be there or something. Because that's great. I am flattered by the fact that people in-game would try to pay people to go to the meeting and act interested, to write down names and try to determine who's in the guild. I think that that's great. That's a big part of the game, and that's a big part of trying to run a system like that. But having that individual report back to them and be able to say, well, it was 6 people in black cloaks, no one was allowed to talk. The only person that talked was Maxx, and we all already knew that he was the one running it. I mean, to me, that is just awesome, because just to see the look on their faces whenever their little informant runs back and says, I don't know. I mean, to me, that's the key to really having that secret society and keeping it secret. So, like I said, hope it's helpful. Hope I didn't lose you in my rambling. If you have questions, comments, leave them below. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please click like. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. Of course, I have Ko-Fi and Patreon if anyone feels so inclined. And the best thing you could do for me, though, is just share my videos, watch my videos, and comment if there's something you want to comment on. But just let everybody that you know that this channel's here, and I have tons of content, everything from medieval fantasy to post-apocalyptic, and beyond. And I just hope that everything helps you out and helps you make a better game for yourself and others. And as always, adventure on. The eye of fate has cast gaze upon you and found you worthy to join our guild. You need not speak, only nod if you wish to join us. We seek only to answer fate's call. We seek not wealth, nor vengeance, nor duty, but only the call. Understand, initiate, that once you join, there is no leaving until fate finally calls upon thee. Excellent, then. We welcome you to our guild. The Eye of Fate awaits to see what dark skills you possess. Follow me.